Hi, I'm Rahul, your trusted Toronto realtor. I have spent over a decade helping families find their dream homes and investors build wealth through real estate investments. Whether you are a first time buyer, are you looking to upsize or downsize, or thinking about building your own portfolio, I am here to guide you every step of the way. On this channel, I'll be sharing tips, insights, and strategies to make your real estate journey smooth and successful. If you're ready to turn your real estate dreams into reality, hit the subscribe button and let's get started. In today's video, we'll be covering our first time home buyer's guide. It is a comprehensive guide that you will need to start your home buying journey. It has everything that you need to know. Alright, let's get started. So the first thing when you start looking for a house is to understand your requirements. Where should you begin? So when you're looking for your first house, you have a lot of questions, a lot of concerns. This guide will try to answer as much as possible regarding your concerns. So the first question to begin with is, where do you actually begin looking for a home? You have a lot of reasons to buy a home. Everybody has different reasons. Some of them could be first-time buyers. Some of them are looking to accommodate a growing family, while others are seeking sound investment or even downsizing from a larger house. The first step in the home buying process is knowing why you are buying. That is the first and most important question you should ask yourself and not anybody else. What are you looking for in the house can only be answered by you. To start the process, you can start by establishing priorities in the following areas. Number one is the location. This is the most paramount and important question that you should ask first. Getting to know the neighborhoods, the complexes, and the subdivisions that have more interest for you. Drive around the neighborhood, get a feel of the society, get the feel of the streets, get the feel of the area to make sure that this is something that you're looking for and you can live there for the next few years. The second most important thing is budget. You should always get a mortgage consultation to know what you can afford and in what areas, what price points are going on currently. That ways you can have your expectations meet with your budget. The third and the most important, I feel, is lifestyle choices. Depends if you're looking for a house in the city or in the suburb. Both have very different lifestyles, and both of them could be 30-40 minutes apart, but lifestyle is very different. If you're looking at the core, the city provides more opportunities. It's more community living. You have more places where you can go around on bikes or even walk. It is easy access to school, work. There are a lot of restaurants, parks, cafes right outside your house. And transit opportunities are so much better within the city as well. Living in central core obviously comes with some cons as well. There is less space, there is more noise, more traffic, less privacy, and the price points are a bit higher. But living outside the core gives you more space inside and outside. You can get a bigger lot, a bigger house, and stay within a reasonable budget as well. But again, the cons for that are it comes at a greater distance to work, very few places where you can walk to or bike around. You will have to be dependent on a car. So the considering points for budget, location, and lifestyle kind of go blend in together, because if you're away from the city, you'll have to spend more money to get a car. You'll have to pay insurances. And as you know, insurance in Canada isn't cheap. Now that we've established these three basic questions, the next thing you should ask yourself is what to look for when viewing a house. This is where your realtor should step in and also guide you along the way. There are very few questions that you need to ask yourself every time you think of buying a house. And these are major factors that can either make your buying experience pleasant or can give you a headache. So the first question I would always recommend my clients to ask themselves is, do you see yourself living in the house for quite a few years? So what's the duration of time frame you think you'll be living in that house? Is it 2 years, 3, 4, 5, or 10, 15 years? A lot of your decisions, a lot of your planning will be based on this question itself. The second, can you see your kids growing up in that neighborhood? Are there good schools around? Even if there are no good schools around yet, are there any new schools planned in the neighborhood? So all those questions you'll have to get answered by your agent and by yourself as well to figure out if that's a good pocket for yourself. And does it suit your future goals? If you're planning to expand or if you're planning to change your work positions, does this location give you the flexibility to go back and forth from work within a reasonable times? If your commute travel to work every day is about 2.5 hours, then that obviously is not a good decision choice in terms of lifestyle. And how accessible is that place by transit? How important is transit for you? Are you willing to get two cars for your family, or are you okay with just one car and let one of the other person use the transit on a day-to-day basis? This will also answer a lot of your questions financially, because adding another car liability on yourself would increase your monthly payments for the car financing and also add added pressure for the car insurance. After you've answered these initial questions, the next thing is to do is get onto a buyer consultation with your agent. Whether it's me or somebody else, pick the agent that works the best for you. This is the most important part of your home buying journey. What I normally recommend is to take at least 30 minutes to an hour out of your time to sit down with your agent and go over the details. You have enough time on your hand to discuss what your needs are, what your expectations are, and also try to get guidance from the agent to see how they can help you reach your goals. Our goal is to just be a guiding hand to the journey. I am not here to open the doors and tell you which house to buy, but I'm here to guide you through the process and make sure you make the right move. Because how we normally work is we don't just get you one house. Our goal is to make sure you get the right house, right investment, so that you can grow your portfolio from there and make yourself a generational wealth only through real estate. And it's the most important factor, like you have to start it right. During the buyer consultation, your realtor must and should cover all these points. They should ask you what have your experience been when you're buying your previous homes and what's your knowledge about the home buying process. Just give you an overall refresher about the home buying process and go through various mortgage financing options, such as your personal cost of living, how much you can afford each month, what type of mortgages can be arranged, should you go with minimum down payment or 20% or even more than 20%. So these kind of questions your agent can help you reach a conclusion to. The amount of down payment varies from different lenders, different programs to different house types, so you should be aware of that as well. The next step in this consultation would be to get a detailed explanation of the home buying process, which not only includes discussing the size of the deposit that you have to put with the offer, what's the actual difference between cash and mortgage that you would need, reviewing some of the special clauses, conditions that will be put in your offer, like a financing condition, home inspection condition, or if you're buying a condo, a status certificate condition. Depending on the house type, these conditions should be put in the offer process. And discussing how the offers would be presented and countersigned, what is countersigning, what is a sign back, reviewing what the lawyers do between the day you accept the offer till the day of closing, just to make sure what's happening in the back end, and talking about the insurance requirements for your new home and what would you need to go to that process. When you come across a home or a property that you think is the right fit for you, the next obvious step in this process is to write up an offer. At this point, your agent should discuss with you the best way to do this based on the circumstances of the property and the market. Typically, offers will go back and forth a few times between the buyers and the sellers as you're able to negotiate the price, the closing date, and other conditions in the offer. Any document that has written changes in the original offer is called a sign back, which is sent to both the parties for acceptance. There can be other circumstances where the negotiations will go verbally till all the parties are ready to put those negotiations in paper and sign that document. The next part of the process is the deposit. Let's say your offer is accepted and both sellers and buyer agree on the price, closing date, and the other conditions in the offer. The deposit is usually delivered to the listing brokerage within 24 hours of the acceptance. So let's say your offer gets accepted on a Thursday, you have to put down the deposit before the end of the day Friday within that 24-hour time period. In some cases, when the weekend kicks in, it's then transferred to the next business banking day. The deposit will be held in trust account until closing and then applied to your purchase price. For example, if you purchase a property roughly around 500,000, the deposit is then only 20,000 based on 5%. The rest 480,000 will be owed at closing, which can be paid as a combination of your mortgage plus additional down payment. The next phase of the offer is the conditional period. Once your offer is accepted, the conditional period begins. All the conditions in your offer must be met before it can become a firm and the deal is finalized. Most offer contains the following conditions. Number 1 is finance. Mortgage approval has to be completed within this finance agreement, so your property assessment value, your qualification should all be done within this finance period. Usually this is about 5 business days for all the offers. In some cases where the competition is higher, we have to work on the conditions, but we'll get to that in the later stage of this video. The second is the appraisal. It is part of the finance condition as well. where you have to make sure the bank appraises the property at the value that we have purchased it, so there is no implications of the down payment. The third condition comes in as inspection. We get 5 days, which is similar to the financing, to make sure we get a qualified home inspector in the house to check your home thoroughly and let you know if there's anything you should be concerned about. Home inspections usually are not a pass or a fail test. They just give you more information about the house so you can make an informed decision. And in some of the circumstances, you can also put an escape clause in the condition. Let's say you're selling your first house before buying the second house. You can always put that as a condition. The chances of getting that condition accepted in today's market are very low. In a decade of doing this business, we've probably used this escape clause 2 or 3 times at max, so this is very rare. When all the conditions have been met and all the paperwork is signed, then the offer is considered to be firm and binding. Now that all of the conditions have been met, your offer is firm. Congratulations, you've just bought your first home. All that's left to do now is to be ready to get moved into the house. Now let's get back to some of the very important elements, the top 10 buying mistakes that you should definitely avoid. There is a first time for everything. And when you finally manage to save enough money to buy your first home, it can be very exciting. But before you start looking for homes to buy, learn from these 10 mistakes that a lot of first time buyers make. So number 1 is buying for right now. Whether you're buying a house or a condo anywhere in Toronto, it's honestly a huge investment. And it's a very important decision. While setting your search criteria, consider where you will be in 5 years from now. Are you planning to start on a family? Is there a chance you'll be relocating or traveling? Ask yourself how your life may be different in a few years to ensure that you aren't buying a home that you might outgrow in the next 1 or 2 years. The second point is looking at properties before even getting pre-approved. Ask any real estate agent in the city. They will all tell you one thing. Before you look at the houses, make sure you get pre-approved. A mortgage pre-approval is important because it gives you a general idea of what your budget is. That way, let's say the bank says you can qualify for $1 million. You're not wasting time looking at $600,000-$700,000 homes, which are not something that you're looking for. Also, on the other hand, you're not looking at $1.2 or $1.3 million homes, which definitely are beyond the budget. The next mistake a lot of buyers make is letting first impressions be the last impressions. There's an entire book written on how first impressions of the home is the single most decisive factor affecting many purchase decisions. Don't let bad decor or messy housekeeping scare you away from a house that structurally meets your requirements. If the layout is proper, the structure is good, and the owners haven't kept the house well or staged it well, you'll probably have to look beyond the staging, beyond the decor to look at the actual value of the house. Remember, you're buying a house, a structure, not the furnishings in the house. A shabby couch does not come with the house. Another common mistake first-time home buyers make is they accept the first mortgage rate that is offered to them. When it comes to getting a good mortgage, you need to shop around with a bunch of lenders. Either you work with a mortgage broker who has access to a lot of banks, a lot of lenders, or work with someone trusted at a designated bank, but make sure the rates are competitive. Don't take any rate blindly. Shop around at 1 or 2 locations at least to make sure you're getting the right market rate. The next and the biggest pet peeve for me is people waiting for 20% to buy their first home. If there is one thing we know for sure, the best day to buy real estate was yesterday. No matter how cliche this sounds, but in the retrospect, you will always appreciate if you would have bought a house a year or 2 years sooner. In Toronto's real estate market, the longer you wait to buy, the less your money is actually worth because the prices are continuing to climb. If you are saving for a full 20% down payment, which seems out of reach for now, paying a mortgage insurance premium with a 5 or 10% down payment can be so much better. It will save you the time and you'll start making equity so much sooner. Similarly, you don't want to use all your savings just to avoid paying the CMHC insurance. It's better to have a bit of saving on hand so that you're not living house poor. And something with CMHC insurance with a lot of people get confused is that is not something you have to pay from your cash at the beginning. Let's say your mortgage is $500,000 and CMHC insurance is $20,000. That $20,000 gets added on to the mortgage. So instead of taking a $500,000 mortgage, your mortgage is now $520,000. That $20,000 add-on on the mortgage will probably increase your monthly cost by $30 to $40 a month, which is so much better than saving and waiting for 2-3 years down the line for that 20%. The next mistake a lot of people make is not being flexible on the neighborhoods. You have a certain budget, you have certain requirements, and your neighborhood should match those other requirements as well. You cannot expect to buy a $500,000 home in Rosedale neighborhood of Toronto. You'll have to be flexible based on the budgets and the requirements. And Toronto has neighborhoods for everyone, literally everyone. Whether it's a first-time home buy or an upgrade or an upsize, there's so many pockets you can look into. Each neighborhood performs so differently. For example, let's say a condo in Danforth or East York area could be $550,000 to $600,000. A similar size condo in Leslieville or Riverdale neighborhood could be close to $800,000, $850,000. So being open to buying a property in different Toronto neighborhoods could save you a lot of money on your first time. Coming to the next mistake, you don't have your deposit funds ready to go. As a first-time home buyer, you should always have your deposit ready to go in case your offer is accepted. Don't wait until the last minute to have your necessary deposit funds readily available. A real estate deposit of somewhere around 5 to 6% of the purchase price is the norm in today's market. If you have to move your funds around from one bank to the other to accumulate that 5%, in some cases they cannot be done within the same day. It might take 3 to 4 more days to get that funds together. And that 3 to 4 more days that you need to accumulate those funds might be the difference between you getting the house and not getting the house. The next mistake a lot of people make is believing the list price is what the sellers actually want. The list price of the house is not MRSP price. This is not what the sellers are looking for, and that doesn't determine the market value of the house. If somebody has a house which is worth $700,000 and the list at $900,000, even buying that house for $800,000 doesn't mean you've created a discount for yourself. You've just bought a property which is higher than the market value. Always ask your agent's assistance to make sure the list price and the market value are in line. And the first difference you need to understand is the list price is not the market price. Generally, listings in Toronto have always been historically priced below the market value to attract a lot of bidding, a lot of attention to the property. So if you're seeing a property worth $800,000, that doesn't mean the market value is 800. In some cases, it could be 850, 900, but your agent will be able to make sure you don't pay over the market value. And if any agent is pushing you to go over the market value, always ask for comparables. Always ask to see why this house is worth this much. Any reputable or knowledgeable agent should be able to justify the price of the house that you're paying. The next mistake a lot of people make, especially when they're entering bidding wars, is not setting an upper limit. If you're not setting a maximum budget when you're entering a bidding war, when the emotions are running high, you can end up paying more for a property where the market value is actually much less. When you find a home you love and are serious about making the offer, it's a good time to determine what the property is actually worth for you. Ask your agent about the market value, and if the property is still worth more for you, keep an upper limit. Let's say I tell my clients I wouldn't offer more than 1.2 million for this house based on the market value, but there is something in that house that you know you will not find anywhere. You can add maybe 20, 30,000 for your emotional value to the house value, but don't go beyond that. No matter what emotions you bring to the house cannot be worth 200, 300,000 more than its market value. The last but not the least, understanding the cost of home ownership. One of the mistakes first-time home buyers make is not budgeting for the cost of owning the house. When you've gotten past the down payment, paid your closing cost, and now have keys for your new house, the financial landscape of a new homeowner looks a lot different. There are a lot of expenses that you should consider. Any upgrades in the house, buying furniture, buying things that you like to put in the house. All those costs should be accounted for at a certain level before you decide to go in with the purchase. The prices are growing so rapidly that by the time you save 20% for the original price of the house that you would have thought you would buy, the prices have gone up again. It's a catch-up race that nobody can ever win unless you're winning a lottery. And if you do, let me know. The next element in the buying guide is the market conditions. So we've seen various market conditions. As of today, it's quite balanced, but we've seen a very heavy buyer's market. We've seen a very heavy seller's market. So depending on what kind of market you are in will determine your bidding strategy or putting an offer strategy. If it's a buyer's market, sellers are more receptive of negotiating. You can take a look at the house maybe 3-4 times before putting in the offer. But when it's a seller's market, that means there is lower inventory and higher demand. You'll probably get 15 minutes to 30 minutes to look at the house, and you'll have to make a decision within a day or two if you like that house or not, because you'll be competing against at least 5, 10, 15 offers. In a very heavy seller's market, we've seen multiple offers go up to 80, 85 offers on one single property. So those market conditions will determine our process and the offer process. Make sure you're understanding the market by sitting down with your agent, asking them details about the market, and then prepare yourself about the offer. In a seller's market, buyers need to be ready to compete for the property they want. With limited inventory, bidding wars become a very common tactic, and choosing to waive your clauses and conditions such as status, finance, or inspection can determine if you get the offer accepted or not. However, as the market becomes more balanced, buyers can adjust their tactics as more inventory becomes available and bidding wars are less common. Now that we've covered the major process of the offer, let's get into the closing cost. So understanding your land transfer tax, rebates, and other closing costs, the biggest question is who pays the land transfer tax? It's the buyers that pay the land transfer tax in Toronto and Ontario. Your lawyer will arrange the land transfer taxes to be paid when the house is being transferred to your name. There's some good news for first-time buyers. They might be eligible to receive some credits and refunds on the land transfer tax. If you're buying anywhere outside Toronto, you can get up to $4,000 as rebate. If you're buying in Toronto, you can get $4,000 plus another rebate of $4,475 towards your buying credit for the land transfer tax. For understanding how much the land transfer tax is, the online calculator is available, or you can go check out this detailed documents in the guide that will guide you on how much land transfer tax you'll have to pay for a certain house value. Now, after the land transfer tax, there are certain other closing costs. So let's get into them one by one. If your down payment is less than 20%, then CMC Insurance will be added on to the closing cost as well. And that basically depends on what's the range of down payment you're putting in, if you are at 5%, 10%, or 15%. The other costs are property appraisals, which is roughly $400 to $500. Sometimes they can be covered by the lenders as well. A usual home inspection will cost you anywhere between $400 to $700 depending on the extent of the inspection and also the company that you hire. The legal fees for the lawyers in the range of $1,200 to $1,300. Title insurance is usually 1% of the purchase price. So let's say you're buying a house worth $500,000, you can expect your title insurance to be anywhere between $400 to $500 for that. If the property survey isn't available and you need to get that done before, that can be an added cost, but this is very rare. Most of the houses, the newer houses, will have the property survey online, and for the older houses, unless you're planning to do any changes structurally, you wouldn't need a survey. Some of the other costs that you should consider are closing costs for moving. Typical moving, which takes about 3 to 5 hours, could be around $1,000 to $1,500 depending on the stuff that you have. Utility connection costs, which are in a very low $50, $70, $100 range. If there's any renovations that you need to do to the current house, you should always make room for that before you make the purchase. The next element of the buyer's guide is to why use a buyer's agent. Not just because I want to represent you and I want to sell my services, but using a buyer's agent is very important in especially Toronto's market. Let's get into it in detail. A buyer's agent job is to get you from point A to point B very safely. More specifically, it's their job to educate you about the neighborhood, make sure you're not getting into a bad neighborhood which you will regret later, and perform all the due diligence on the property. Make sure nothing's been hidden for you. Any defects that are in the property are not being hidden by the sellers or the seller's agent. They will ask questions on your behalf. They will make sure property is safe before you can get in the house. And obviously they will negotiate the terms of the contracts and make sure they make you aware of the market values and stop you from overpaying for a house. A buyer's agent will also determine your needs and priorities and make sure you're not diverging from the actual needs just based on the house quality, house type, or the neighborhood. Make no mistake about it. Who you choose to work with will impact the choice of the home that you buy, the neighborhood that you buy in, and how much you pay for it. It can mean the difference between overpaying for a house or getting at market value, or buying a condo in a so-so building versus buying a condo in a really great neighborhood building. They will be the biggest difference between losing your money on a real estate investment or making the property cash flow positive and making it work for you. The next segment is do not use the listing agent when you're trying to buy your first home. When I list houses, I do not represent other buyers for that house. because my responsibility is first for the sellers to make sure the house gets sold. If I am not able to get them proper value for the house or more value for the house, I am not doing my job well. As a listing agent, if I have my own buyer, I will not be able to be fair to either of the parties. I will not be able to be fair to either of the parties. One of the parties will feel that they have been unfairly treated in the transaction, because my first duty is always towards the sellers. So that is why if you work with the listing agent, you should know that he's working for the sellers and not for you. Now we're coming to the end of this buyer's guide, but I want to leave you with a bonus tip on how to save for your down payment. Go check out my buyer's guide in the link below to give you multiple options on how you can save for your down payment. Once you read the bonus tips about saving for your down payment, you can scroll down in the buyer's guide. Once you're in my buyer's guide, you'll see the testimonials at the end. These are real testimonials left by my clients. You can go through them. The way we work is I am not here to sell you anything. I'm not here to sell you a house. I'm not here to sell you an investment. I want to be the guiding force with you when you were looking for an investment or to buy a house. I will guide you to make sure you make the right decision. I will help you get to the right decision, but you will pick the house that you want to pick. I'm only here to be the helping hand for you. If you've seen the video so far, you're ready for your next step. If you'd like to reach out to me, you can reach out through my socials or put a comment down this video, and I will be able to get in touch with you to help you with the process. Thanks for watching. Take care. See you in the next video.